The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Welcome in Facebook Live. If you're tuning in on 1010XL, we're happy to bring it to you, a little Campo and Joe. If you find us in podcast form or listen to us, whatever it might be, we totally appreciate it. Joe C. from XL Primetime, my head coach, Dave Campo, as we are ready to go. Listen, last week we went through the bye week, but, we're back on this 5-game win streak that this team is on.
Absolutely.
And we got the Niners coming to town.
Yeah, this is great. I firmly believe that the tougher teams you play during the year, if you're a good football team, it's going to make you better.
Yeah,
It's iron sharpens iron.
Right,
so
right.
I'm looking forward to this ball game. I like our chances here in Jacksonville, and it's going to be a heck of a ball game. Come on out. Get that teal and black out there for sure.
By the way, when you mentioned come on out, I'm hearing standing room only, SROs. So it's going to be a hot ticket. We haven't had this in a long, long time. We're going to find out if there's more teal-colored fans than maybe San Francisco.
We don't want any red out there.
They will buy them up. You know as well as I do. They will buy up those tickets. But it's still, I think we've learned something. When you travel and you have I shouldn't even say when you travel. When you're an NFL city and you are a place that people like to travel to, this is a great spot for ticket holders of other teams to come in here and have a little mini vacation.
Yeah,
that's why they come here.
Absolutely. You got the beach, you got the golf, you got there's all kinds of activities here. Yeah. And most people that come across the country are probably going to go for more than 2 days. They're going to make at least a 3 or 4 day weekend out of it. Yeah. So, hey. I don't want the red in here, though. I don't want to make it sound too good to come into. I want teal and black.
Yeah. You need to be noisy. And look, this home field advantage, if you look back on the month of October, there's only one win that has taken place on this 5-game winning streak in Duval. It's happened twice on the road. It happened twice in London, and then it happened once here against the Colts. So let's get into it. We're going to talk as much as we can about the Niners. But before we do that, Coach, just go back real quick. This was a bye week. We did talk about this a little bit last week, but just basically the self-scouting, repair the body, reset the mind, kind of take us through that a little bit.
Well, first of all, it's a great time for it to happen. Mm-hmm. In the middle of the season, relatively middle, you got guys that are a little banged up. It gives them a chance to kind of rejuvenate and really – it's a mental game for these guys. Mm-hmm. They put in a lot of time at the stadium studying and looking at film and all those kind of things. They need a little break every once in a while just to kind of let their mind go to some other things. And I think that's a plus. And for the coaches, they didn't get the same amount of time off that the players did.
Right.
They're studying, they're looking at themselves as much as they're looking at San Francisco. They're things that we have not done well, things that we have done well. How can we do them better? Mm-hmm. And there's some things that we need to improve on. We need to play better in the red zone. We need to get a better third down package. And part of the third down package is doing better on first and second down so that you're in the short yardage situations on third down. When I say short yardage, I'm talking about 3rd and 4, 3 in that range where it's a makeable first down. So those kind of things are being looked at. There may be a play that's working real well for us. So in order to, that's what their people are looking at. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a plan for that. Exactly. So what do? You window dress that play with some other kind of motion, shift, whatever, to run the same play. So that's what a bye week gives you an opportunity to do. See what the other team is looking at,
right,
and how you can combat that.
I've been doing a lot of last year to this year comparisons, and if you go back and look at bye week last year, you and I were probably having a Campo and Joe podcast saying, man, they got some things to fix. Well, it's a totally different deal this year when they're self-scouting. So let's hit a couple of things. At least Doug Peterson came out of this bye week basically saying that he's not relieved that he doesn't have the play calling duties all to himself, but he's happy with what he's been able to do overall as a head coach. Because, look, people have been critical about Press Taylor and some of those decisions. But do you agree with the idea that Doug Peterson is able to have his thumbprint on everything and that has freed him up?
I think that's absolutely correct. And I think that helps you defensively because when the head coach is involved in every part of the game, there are situations where he might just say, hey, we're struggling right now in offense. We got to make something happen. Go ahead and go after them this time or whatever. You know, those kind of decisions, a lot of them should be the CEO ought to be making those decisions. And when you're calling plays, some guys can do that and have no problem.
Right.
Some guys can't.
Yeah.
Some guys can call games better in the press box than they can on the field. Those are things. One of the things that they're working on in San Francisco is Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator, has been in the press box. They're bringing him down onto the field.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, I think, you know, I was in the press box because it was a sterile environment.
As a defensive coordinator.
Defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a sterile environment. But I had some guys on the field that I had definite confidence in that could rally the troops, that could do the corrections on the sideline coming down from the box.
Right.
If they don't have that, then you got to be on the field, you know, because you're the guy that they're looking to. You're the guy that's making those calls. So those are the kind of things that you know, I think the head coach, the more he's involved with the total package, that's when you get a fake punt here or there or something along those lines. That's the guy that makes that decision, not the special teams coach.
Well, you made one, like something I hadn't thought about. You make a lot of great points, but this one I hadn't thought about is that his fingers, hands, thumbprints on the defense. And I believe Mike Caldwell is a better defensive coordinator this year versus last year, but I hadn't really thought about it. Doug Peterson's always seen as an offensive guy, but heck yeah, if he has Press Taylor, Mike McCoy, all these guys working on that game plan, along with him, he's not surrendering that.
Right.
But it does give him a chance maybe to walk over to the other side and say, hey, let me take a look at the D.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, there's times when going the other way around where, you know, defensive coach will say to the head coach, hey, you know, I don't know if we can go another series here. We're this, you know, you might want to go for fourth down right here if you get an opportunity because we've been on the field here a little too long. Those kind of things, sometimes when you're zeroed into what you're calling and you're looking at that play sheet, you watch those guys like the guy that's coming in, Shanahan.
Right.
He never takes his eyes off that play sheet. He goes to the sideline. His eyes are on it all the time, especially on defense, when you're on defense.
Yeah. And if you go back in time and you think about his defensive coordinators, they've held it down. Every single one of them.
Yep.
Now D'Amico Ryan's left.
Yep.
And he was holding it down. So you're right. You got to, if the only thing you're doing is paying attention to that offensive side, that other side may suffer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think Doug is doing the right thing as long as it's just like the players, right? The players, in order for you to put them on the field, you got to trust them. Well, it's the same thing. If you're going to give the play call and to Press Taylor, you got to trust him. He's got to be somebody that thinks like you do, that understands what your philosophy is and what you want the team to look like in critical situations. Now, the critical situations, you can still make the call as a head coach, whether you're making the calls or not. But if you have confidence in your people, then you let them coach.
Yeah.
And that's Jimmy Johnson's philosophy, and it was mine going in. Unfortunately, I had a couple of situations where I didn't have trust, and I should have taken over a little bit more. But, you know, that's one of the things that I think is Doug's strength, is understanding the whole package.
It's funny because there are so many different examples that we could use of a guy delegating, giving an opportunity to somebody, and it doesn't work. But I like the way Doug has handled this. He believes in his people. He empowers people. He does the same thing with the players in terms of saying, hey, we're going to reach this goal. I'm not giving up on you. Don't give up on us. You know, that type of thing. That's a nice trait that he has.
I remember back to after we lost to Houston. Okay, and we're going to the next ball game. And it's the first time in the press conference after I was driving from the stadium to the fifth quarter. Okay. And I'm listening to the press conference, and it was the first time that I heard Doug. He's not going to throw anybody under the bus, but it was the first time I heard him challenge the players.
Yeah. And that was
and that's what he has. He has that ability to empower the players without being mad or giving thought a chance or calling him out or throwing him under the bus. That's his strength.
Was that the press clippings comment?
No, yes, and it was just that we should be a little bit embarrassed. Yeah. And right away, the players started saying we were embarrassed. Yeah. We didn't do what we were supposed to do, and that's a knack that he has, I believe.
By the way, that Houston Texans team that this team lost to, they look pretty good.
Yeah,
they're clicking along, and you and I were talking about it on Sunday, and I even tweeted out, Duval's going to have to deal with those Texans. Yeah. They are not going to be an easy out. And
especially playing at Texas. But I don't want to go into that. But
we'll get into
all I can tell you is, in reverse of that, the performance that the Tampa Bay Bucks put on defense was the most disgusting-looking defensive performance that I've seen in a long time in the NFL.
Baker Mayfield got his team the lead, 46 seconds left on the clock, and then at the end, all you saw was this meme. He was just like, I can't believe what the hell just happened. But
that was the whole game. That wasn't just that 2-minute drill.
Gosh, it was terrible. All right, so let's get back to self-scouting. You go through the bye week, get these guys back out. Let's do one of the big storylines right now. In the bye week, the trade deadline came and went. They traded for Ezra Cleveland. He's a guard. He comes from Minnesota. He's got a decent starting record. But at the same time, Walker Little is getting healthy again. He'll be cleared tomorrow to practice. And Doug Peterson was kind of emphatic. He came out and said, hey, Walker Little is our starting left guard.
Right.
Pick it up from there.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Well, first of all, I'm glad they got Ezra Cleveland because, I've talked to Andre Patterson, who was he's the D-line coach for the Giants, but he was at Minnesota with Rauscher and Ezra Cleveland.
Phil Rauscher, the offensive line coach for the Jags.
And he said, this guy's got great feet. He's, a really good athlete. He was surprised they traded him because he is better than any of the young linemen that they had in their deal. So that's a plus. So wherever he ends up, he helps our football team. And for a 6th-round pick, that's a no-brainer in my opinion. So now, Walker Little was maybe the best offensive lineman we had before he got hurt. And so now he goes back in to start at guard. I like that from the standpoint of what's going to happen this week, next week, and the week after. The concern is that when you're in there, it's a little different than playing tackle. There's a lot of guys falling on each other and a lot of action going on in there. You certainly don't want to get him hurt. But at the same time, I think he wants to be in there. He wants to be part of this. And, I'm old school football. Maybe I didn't do enough as a head coach of worrying about what was going to happen 2 weeks from now. I was worried about what was going to happen this week. And so putting him in there is the right thing to do as far as putting the best player and getting the best 5. But as far as, these contracts or what's going to happen next year or is he a tackle or a guard, how much money he's going to make, all those things I left to the general manager and let him worry about that.
I feel like Walker Little is feeling a little desperate. As soon as I'm playing well, they move me. The high-price guy comes back in. As soon as I move inside, I'm 11 plays into this experiment or however you want to describe it, and he goes down. A meniscus injury or a knee injury, which is significant enough to keep him out for basically a total of 3 weeks. He probably could have been cleared to play if they didn't have a bye week, but I don't blame him for wanting to play. I hope it works. I'm going to admit to you and everybody else out there, I think I know football until we're talking about a guy going inside playing guard that hadn't played guard. I don't know whether he can do it or not. He seems like he's more of an upright guy. But I'm getting ripped for suggesting that he shouldn't be in there. And we'll find out. I hope he plays well.
My only concern would be the injury factor. But as far as him being able to play the position, I don't have any qualms about it. I think and Ezra Cleveland's very similar to him, 6'6", size-wise, 315. Walker Little's a pretty tough guy and all those kind of things. I don't think that's an issue going in to play guard. He's smart. He can play every position on the line. Yeah, probably could play center as well. I mean, he's a smart guy.
If you think about it, Luke Fortner has 17 degrees, and then the Stanford grown Walker Little.
Yeah, and then you got a veteran at the right tackle. Yeah. So you got the right guys in there. I just think that he gives them a better chance to win Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday.
All right, so let's stay there. Because you're going to have your 5 linemen out there. You got Trevor with a week of rest, which was crucial with that knee injury that he had. We're also talking about the same type of injury. One might have been an MCL, medial collateral ligament on the inside of the knee. The other one might have been a little more maybe meniscus related. Bottom line is they both got an extra week of rest.
Right.
Trevor, I do think, is going to keep that brace on. This is just a guess on my part. And then if things go well, you might see him shed it at some point. But I would think he is ready to go.
Yeah, he's ready to go. I mean, he's one tough guy, and he has a lot of pride in being available. There's no doubt in my mind he's pretty close to 100%, because the way he played the other day, the ability to run and do all those kind of things with that injury, it couldn't have been too bad. No. I think he's going to be at full strength, and I think in the long run he's going to be happy that, listen, Shatley, I love Shatley because Shatley's a team player. He can play center, guard, whatever. But, his grade is not great. I mean, the PFF grade is like 45 or something like that.
Is that bad?
Putting Little in there is probably going to give Trevor a little more confidence that he can hang in there and throw the ball. Yeah. So I think Trevor will be ready to roll.
And what I like more than anything else about what Doug and Press and all the guys involved on the offensive side is that they have come up with a short, quick declaration type of offense, meaning you take the snap, you make one or two reads, and then you make a quick decision. I love it. It's working for Trevor. It's allowing ETN to thrive. It's brought Calvin, Christian, all of them into this. Coming again out of this bye week has been the criticism. They're not as good on third down as we'd like them to be. Right. And then also, Doug was even asked about the passing numbers for Trevor to this point. Yeah. You know what I say to that, Coach? Give me a break. Look at what Trevor Etienne is doing. The run game has been energized and has become a heavy focus, and I think for good reason. That's why the Lawrence stats may sag just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they've made a decision that, with the system, that they're going to take a shot down the field every once in a while, but they're going to control the ball. They're going to, the passing game is part of the running game. They've got the run game. They've got the quick passes. They're not going to fool around with getting him hit too much. That's the system. And so the only thing I think about a system is at the end of the game when you look up at the scoreboard and you're winning. That's the W. That's all I really care about.
So I'm looking at the numbers, all right, and I mean, nothing is really outrageously bad. He completed 3/4 of his passes in a game where they didn't score a ton, but they did double up the Pittsburgh Steelers. He threw for 292, a pick and a touchdown, but then he threw for 204, 181. He had the nice game against the Bills where he threw for 315 yards, but only one touchdown. And then you go back, it was 207 against the Falcons. And so I think, and I'm guilty of this, I was expecting gaudy big numbers, points in the 30s on a regular basis. But let's not forget, they have scored in the 30s a number of times already, and they've they've had double-digit victories twice on the road and once at home. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you have to look at is that this football team has not been behind in a game in the last 5 games.
On the win streak.
They've been ahead, okay? Well, when you're ahead, you're not going to just go crazy throwing the ball.
Right. You don't need
It's the other way around. When you're behind, you start throwing the ball about 50 times, and usually that's a bad scenario.
Exactly.
So as long as we're ahead, we're starting fast. I think we have not done as good a job this year coming out at halftime with the first drive that they had a year ago. And I think that's one of the things they're going to be looking at is maybe they need to, take a quick look at what happened in the first half and script the first drive of the second half and try to get some points right out of the locker room.
Yeah, because it makes everything better. You get to dictate what you want to do offensively. This team on the other side gets a little more desperate. They can apply pressure in a number of different ways. Makes the defense better, obviously, because if you're playing with the lead, it's going to open up some things for the pass rush. So let's get to that side of the ball. And you're taking on, and I said this to you last week, this team defensively has shined of late. They have a lot of takeaways. They're at the top or near the top in a lot of defensive categories. But they have faced a Pittsburgh Steelers team that looked pretty lousy, an Atlanta Falcons team that now has benched their quarterback, a Buffalo Bills team at that time that looked pretty clunky, Derek Carr yelling at his receivers. Now they're going to face a 49ers team that's got a lot of check marks in a lot of positions.
Absolutely. This is going to be a big test. The biggest thing is they're still going to have to stop the run with McCaffrey, and that starts the whole thing with them. They're a balanced football team, but they're more run-oriented than pass. And so, they're going to have to stop the run. Don't let them get really going to where they're completely balanced.
Okay.
And they've given up a lot of yardage. This defense is a kind of a bend but don't break. Get a lead so that they have to throw the ball a little bit more, and that's where you get the turnovers. And the turnover game is going to be really important this week. Purdy threw for 300 last week, but he had 2 interceptions and a fumble.
And at the critical time too.
Yes.
That was a very
one of them in the red zone, just like happened to Trevor the one time. Yeah, very
important game against a team that was really putting some pressure on themselves to rise up, and that was the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
But let me hit you with this: the Jags. Going back to your point that you don't have to throw nearly as much if you're winning or you're playing with the lead. The defense is giving up over 260 passing yards. That's 30th in the National Football League, which explains what you were talking about before. Teams have to drop back and throw it to try and catch up. How will they handle Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle? You can go down the line with the weapons that they have.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is going to be stop the run, make them throw the football. This is still a young quarterback. Young quarterbacks have problems when you're changing coverages. They're doing that much more this year than they did a year ago. And don't give up the big play. Make sure that, and one thing this defense is doing this year better than last year is this is a good tackling defensive football team.
Yeah.
When they check the ball down or throw the crossing routes and all that stuff, there's not a lot of run after catch. Guys are putting guys on the ground, and that's going to be really important in this game because McCaffrey catching the ball in open space, Kittle catching the ball in open space, Deebo Samuel catching the ball in open space. Those guys are all pretty good run after catch guys. So they're going to have to tackle, and they don't want to give up the big play. Make them execute all the way down the football field.
Yeah, Deebo's not been 100% healthy, so we'll keep an eye on him. Trent Williams is a guy that was down for a couple of games, and obviously he's going to be back. Brock Purdy had the concussion. We go back a couple of weeks. He was cleared from concussion protocol after the game up in Minnesota, and then they still lost that game to Cincinnati. Chase Young, what do you think is going to happen with a guy that was just brought in at the trade deadline? You have a little bit of an intel on what you heard from him up in Washington. What do you think he'll do in San Francisco?
Well, first of all, he's talented.
Yeah.
But he's had a rough go since he was a second pick in the draft.
Yeah.
He's really struggled with injury. The word out was that he was a little undisciplined. Well, he can't be undisciplined in that system.
Okay.
They're not going to allow it, and so I think he's going to put some pressure on. But again, how does he fit in the locker room? That's going to be an issue. That's one of the reasons I don't think we went after him. We might have been interested in him, but the locker room situation, they felt he was a little too undisciplined and kind of into himself. So
and the amount of trade compensation that you needed to give them was in it was a third-round pick, and Jacksonville's trying to figure out exactly what they do have based on what they're going to have to do with Calvin Ridley. So that may have limited him a little bit.
But I think they have to make sure they take care of where he is, and along with Bosa. I mean, they've got pass rushers, Hargrave. They've got guys that can rush the passer. There's no doubt. So. And they are a blitz team a little bit. Warner is one of the leading sack guys, middle linebackers. So it's going to be a heck of a ball game. I think we're we're going to go into this game with the idea that we can't make any mistakes. We got to make sure we take care of the football and stop the run and go from there.
So just to give you some numbers, 49ers top 12 offense, Jacksonville 17. Jacksonville's defense top 15, 49ers defense top 10.
Right.
So they're better in a couple of key
statistically.
Categories. Yeah, and this really comes down to who is going to be able to exercise some demons and take away what the other team does well. Well, Brock Purdy has proven that he can throw the ball around pretty good.
Yes.
I mentioned the run game.
Right.
And then come to this side, Trevor's proven he can throw the ball around, and obviously Etienne's having a day. So you're right. It's going to come down to adjustments, matchups, who's able to take advantage.
Well, this is going to be a tight ball game, in my opinion. I don't think San Francisco's too good for us to blow them out, but I think we're too good for them to blow us out. I think it's going to be come to the end of the ball game, maybe the team that has the ball last. Okay. That's what it's going to be.
All right, that's kind of interesting you said that, because as soon as you said that team is too good to be blown out, I'm like, yeah. And then you said this team's too. Like, well, wait a minute. Am I ready to go there? Because I am so impressed with what the defense has done this year that I might be inclined to go along with you.
Yeah.
This team can score, even though they've struggled a little bit with points. Keep in mind, they're on a 5-game winning streak, doing what they need to do to win. But I do think this team can create points when they need to. And I have to go with – I want to see what this defense can do against a high-powered offense.
Yeah, this is a good test. I'm looking forward to it. I think that we have a little bit of advantage playing at home and at 10 o'clock in the morning for them.
True, and the clock's got turned back this
absolutely.
week.
So I think we have a little advantage there, but it's still going to come down to 4 or 5 plays during the game that make the difference, and we got to make them.
Yeah, I'm looking at the point spread, and it's right there at a field goal. And they like San Francisco in this game, at least the odds makers.
I like that. I like being the underdog. Yeah. That's good. Perfect.
Especially with two teams that are trying to come out of a bye saying, okay, second season. This is our second part of our season going into the postseason.
Right.
And they're on a 3-game losing streak. They're feeling a little anxious about this football game.
Right. And I think you're right. I think that's why I give us an advantage, and I'm looking forward to getting a W this weekend.
You come into this house, you got to deal with the bank, baby. So let's find out if they can get it done. And we'll obviously be able to look back and talk about it on next Tuesday. Listen, Coach, you don't have to make a prediction right now, but you feel pretty good about it.
I do. I'm looking forward to the 5th quarter this week.
Yeah, that's the way to do it right there. All right, we are out. Joe C., Dave Campo, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. One more as we get ready for another dub.
This presentation of the Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air, fast and reliable AC service.